Welcome to a very special midweek edition of From the Benches. And why is it special, you ask? Because I am here live in living color with my co-host, Ryan Hilson. Ryan, how are you?
Doing all right. Got off of work yesterday, drove through the night, and here I am sitting in your dining room to record a podcast. First time we've been together for one of these in several weeks. I am back in this neck of the woods for the holidays, so yeah, figured we might as well record a podcast while we're within 100 miles of each other.
Absolutely, and I am, of course, Ross Ugelman, writer at PackersTalk.com. Let's dive right into the news. As most of you know, I'm sure by this time, the Packers beat the Raiders 30-20, overcoming a third quarter deficit and taking that game to move to 10-4. As far as injury news, which we always have to cover, considering that we're covering the Packers, Sam Shields did not play, was still working off that concussion that he suffered in the win over Dallas. Corey Lindsey was active, but J.C. Treader got the start at center. As far as injuries incurred during the game, I can't recall any besides the one to David Bakhtiari. David Bakhtiari had an ankle, not a knee, and was carted off towards the end of the game. We're recording this on Wednesday morning, and as such do not have any updated information on whether or not Bakhtiari should be able to go this weekend against Arizona.
Naturally, that information is going to come out about 3 minutes after we release this podcast.
Perfect. That's awesome. And we'll get to this in a little bit, too, but Mike Daniels signed his extension about 5 minutes after last week's show was published. So this seems to be working out perfectly. That'll do it for injury news, though. So, for a Packers game, that's pretty light, although the loss of the left tackle could really be a problem moving forward, especially if it's maybe for more than just a week or so. If he's not available for the playoff run, that would really, really be a problem. Whatever reservations you and I have with his run blocking, his pass blocking is incredibly important to keeping number 12 in an upright and functioning manner.
Correct.
So that'll do it for the injury news. As far as newsy news, the Pro Bowl participants were announced yesterday. As with last year, this is unconferenced, or the Pro Bowl is just the leading vote getters. It doesn't matter AFC or NFC, and the Packers got 3 guys in: Aaron Rodgers, Clay Matthews, and Josh Sitton were all voted to the Pro Bowl. Ryan, a little bit interesting, don't you think?
Yeah, it certainly was. With the player or with the fan vote, you are never going to be surprised that Rodgers makes it. He is one of the most popular players in the league, and really, whether he plays at a Pro Bowl level or not surprising to see him make it. Sitton, definitely not surprised. Fan vote, a little bit less important at the guard spot. Nobody's familiar with.
This is his worst year in a while, though.
It has been. I mean, he has picked it up as of late, but yeah, he has not looked himself for most of the season, but still playing at a high level as far as guards go, and the fans aren't all that aware of how guards play, what kind of level guards are playing at. They don't see that some new guy who's not a big name coming in and playing well at a guard. They just assume that the good guards are the good guards until somebody tells them differently. So the guard Pro Bowl voting, not something I get too worked up about.
Well, I think the Matthews thing is definitely the one that's deserved. He's having a big year, especially with his position switch and how well he's handled doing all that, despite not having a huge game against Oakland. I mean, he's been very solid in the run and has improved that run defense tremendously. At the same time, when he's been allowed to rush the passer, the sack numbers might not be there, but he's definitely effective in the game. He's drawing double teams. He's creating pressures, things like that, making big plays. So I think that, Capers said a couple years ago, if we move this guy inside, he's going to be a Pro Bowl inside linebacker, and that's exactly what happened. A little bit of housekeeping as far as the roster is concerned. Ty Montgomery just never could quite make it back from whatever happened in that game against San Diego. They called it an ankle sprain, told us even after that game that he might make it back after the bye. and he just never did. They went ahead and put him on injured reserve. We won't see Ty Montgomery for the rest of the season. Who we will see, though, is Andrew Corliss. Q was activated. He was put on the short-term injured reserve, and it seems like that was a decent decision. There was a little bit of consternation after that happened. Well, what if somebody else, more important or with an injury whose time frame makes more sense gets hurt? But it never did happen. All the guys that Green Bay lost, with the exception of Montgomery, were either lost for the season or short term, exactly. So it seems like a good use of the rule, and Corliss will be back. As far as the division is concerned and kind of where everything's at with playoff seedings, Green Bay is your NFC North champions if they find a way to win in Arizona and Minnesota loses on Sunday night to the Giants. Otherwise, and this is probably more likely, the Week 17 game against the Vikings is going to be for the division. Ryan, let's dive into that Oakland game. You and I both have had a chance to see it and even look at it a second time. This is my opinion. The James Starks fumble at the end of the first half completely changed that game. Green Bay was up 14-6. They were driving. I think that fumble happened either right inside the 30 or right inside the 20. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was going to be a first down in the red zone area. At worst, you go up 17-6. At best, it's 21-6, and the game is really kind of a problem for Oakland at that point. They go down and score. They just race down the field and get an Amari Cooper touchdown to pull it to 14-13. Do you think that fumble at the end of the half changed the course of that game and then kind of changed the narrative? Because we're dealing with a lot of negativity after that game.
Yeah, I definitely think that changes it. Like you said, they go and make it a 1-point game when, if that fumble doesn't happen, the Packers make it a multiple score game. That's huge. And then Oakland goes and gets the ball to start the second half, and they're right in position to take the lead in the game. They're right in a competitive game at that point. So that absolutely changes the course of the game. And you're right, the narrative. It seemed like it was a 10-point victory on the road. It's getting a lot of negativity, and I think that fumble is a big part of it. Made the game a lot closer than it seemed. It should have been in the first half for sure. Oakland was able to stick around, make it a tight game in the second half for a while before the Packers ended up with a 10-point victory. So you're right, that fumble was huge. If they go down and score a touchdown, we're talking about a 17-point win that Oakland wasn't in at any point in the second half, and we don't have all the negativity you're seeing from Packer fans, even though they clinched their 10th win of the season in a double-digit road victory.
And clinched a spot in the playoffs, too.
Right,
and part of it, I think, has to do with those two interceptions. The Randall obviously went right for a touchdown, and Micah Hyde was turned to the 3. Personal foul brings that back to the 18. But you're talking about two touchdowns there where one has 0 yards of offense attached to it and the other one has 18. So the offensive numbers got thrown way off, and it didn't look as good in the box score. Plus, you throw in the fact that Mason Crosby got a field goal blocked to go up 33-20, and Rodgers threw a red zone interception as well. I mean, that easily could have been 40-20, could have been 36-20, whatever. The bottom line is that game was not that competitive. And with the Starks fumble, could have been even less competitive. I just think that, be a little bit happier. But at the same time, I understand it because the offense doesn't look great, and the defense is a lot better than it was last year, and honestly is very impressive. But at the same time, it's hard to convince yourself that this defense is capable of carrying a team to the Super Bowl, like Seattle of 2014 or something,
right.
2013, excuse me. If the offense isn't where it was last year, that's fine. I mean, you can win a title, and this is going to be my point, with an offense that isn't necessarily clicking. But can this team improve, whether it's offense, defense, or special teams? I think the special teams is actually pretty good, despite that Mason Crosby block. I mean, Janice had another big return, had another couple of huge plays on punt coverage. They're doubling him now as a gunner. I mean, he's a wrecking ball. Can this team improve enough in 2 weeks to be a Super Bowl contender?
Oh, I think so. They're close. You can see it, and we know that at the level that Aaron Rodgers and the offense is capable of playing at, I don't think in 2 weeks you're going to get to last year's level offensively, but it just seems like it's not out of the realm of possibility that Aaron Rodgers is going to flip the switch and one of these weeks come out and just shred a defense, and we're going to beat the Vikings or beat the Cardinals by 3-4 touchdowns, and everyone's going to shut up because McCarthy fixed the offense with the play calling, Aaron Rodgers turn it on, whatever happens, the receivers start getting open. It just seems like that it's not that far around the corner. Whether that happens or not this season, the offense might continue to play at this level that's a little lower than we're used to seeing. But I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility at all that they just kind of finally click out of nowhere, because Rodgers has that ability. There are players on offense who are capable, and I think that's right around the corner. The defense, if the defense gets any better, that'd be great, because they've been playing good all season. They've been the strength of the team, and if they're able to improve, then maybe they do get to a level where they're able to, kind of carry a not elite offense on a playoff run. So I do think they're close to being a Super Bowl contender. Am I going to expect them to go in and beat Arizona in the divisional round, or beat Carolina in the divisional round, whatever it is? Not necessarily at this point, but they could absolutely show me something in the next 2 weeks that would change my mind about that. So I think they can be a Super Bowl contender by the time they get to the playoffs.
Well, and I think part of it too is, look, this team in 2010, and we'll always go back to that season because it was so important, and they won the title and everything like that. But they beat the Jets 9-0. The game to go into the playoffs, to the difference between being a 9-7 team and a 10-6 team, which they were a 10-6 team and they won the title. We already have 10 wins.
Right.
You remember the final score of that Bears game to get in Week 17? We were there.
I don't remember the final score.
10-3.
Correct. Now we got it.
So I mean, who cares?
Right.
It's just, I think part of it is that people were so wrecked emotionally by that loss to Seattle last year. And they see last year's team as this high-flying, awesome offense that should have gone to the Super Bowl and didn't. And so in their heads, there's no way that a team that looks like this can make it. If that team couldn't make it, this team can't make it. That's not how it works. You just need to get into the tournament.
Yeah.
And
not only the Packers title run, you've seen the Giants twice.
Yep.
Look terrible late in the season, and then go on a playoff run with Eli Manning at quarterback. If you don't think Aaron Rodgers can do something like that at quarterback, regardless of how he's played this season, regardless of how the offense has played, there's absolutely a chance the Packers can make a Super Bowl run. Like I said, I'm not predicting it right now, but it's definitely not outside of the realm of possibility. You can't write off the Packers right now when you have a guy who's potentially who can play at a level of being the best quarterback in the league. You've got a defense playing pretty well. They're right there. They're close. They can absolutely do it.
And if they don't do it, fine. Come talk to me then. That's okay. Like,
right.
I understand the concept. My issue with it is that you're writing them off, and everybody and their moms said before the season, the regular season is the preseason. It doesn't matter this year. All that matters is what happens in the playoffs. Okay, then stop telling me that this team can't win the Super Bowl because of what you've seen in the regular season. If they don't win the Super Bowl, fine. And if you think that maybe not playing that well now is not putting them in as good a position to win the Super Bowl, okay. But don't tell me the season's over like that.
Right. If they lose in the first round of Washington, then we can have that discussion.
Yeah, right. But if you're going to tell me before the season that the regular season doesn't matter, then stop bitching about the regular season. Like I just don't care. I think that you get this team in a situation where you've got a chance to playoffs, maybe even they have the talent to win the title, and they might not be the favorites, but they weren't the favorites in 2010, and they were the favorites in 2011, and that didn't go great. They were supposed to lose by a bunch to Seattle in last year's NFC Championship game. They outplayed them for 60 minutes. Just chill.
Yeah.
Let's dive behind the benches here and talk about Andrew Corliss. And the offense was running more efficiently, definitely when Ty Montgomery was a part of things. Sort of surprising considering how limited we thought maybe he would be as an offensive contributor.
Mm-hmm.
You and I were definitely more excited about him from a special teams perspective, certainly.
Yeah, and long term, not a guy who's going to come in right away and do some of the things that he did.
But he was helpful for the offense. At the same time, I think we all love Justin Perillo, but Andrew Corliss is a former. He was the tight end for that title team. Mm-hmm. This is really starting to sound like the greatest hits of 2010 podcast. But my point is you have Richard Rodgers, who's a possession guy, although he had a big drop against Oakland. Mm-hmm. But Corliss is a little bit more of that down-the-field guy. Is he Jermichael Finley? Is he going to take you up the seam? No, probably not. But you'll remember his game-winning touchdown against the Dolphins last year,
mm-hmm.
and they'll flex him out and even play him at outside receiver a little bit.
Yeah,
I think it gives you a little bit more versatility. Ryan, how do you think Corliss can help the offense?
Well, he's a significantly better offensive weapon than Justin Perillo. Justin Perillo's been getting some snaps. He gives the offense somewhere else to go. This isn't last year's offense where Jordy and Cobb were just wrecking everyone. This is an offense that needs weapons wherever they can get them. And if you can replace Justin Perillo with Andrew Corliss, gives you a little bit more flexibility. It gives you another guy that can possibly go out and win a matchup and make an easy throw for Rodgers. Rodgers hasn't been throwing guys open. He hasn't been making those pinpoint throws where a guy's covered. He makes that he converts a first down. Anyway, things like that. Anyone who can go out there and win a matchup helps the offense, and Corliss absolutely can do that more so than Justin Perillo can from the tight end position. Like you said, he can play kind of all over the place. They'll put him on the outside like he did on that game-winning touchdown against the Dolphins. He's going to line up at tight end. They put him in the backfield as a lead blocker. They put him all over the field. He absolutely adds something to the offense. Whether or not he's the answer, whether he puts them over the top and all of a sudden the offense is clicking again, I don't know if that's the case, but he absolutely helps. He's going to be something. He's going to be a bonus, and that is exactly what the offense needs at this point. They need something to pick up the play, and if Corliss can help them do that, then great. But he's absolutely an improvement to the offense at this point.
And people forget that he's a worthwhile blocker. That's an important thing as far as maybe getting Lacey going a little bit. Mm-hmm. You can use two tight end sets in the no huddle. You can go Corliss at fullback, Rodgers at tight end.
You can split them both outside. You can put Cobb in the back. You can do a lot of things with
exactly.
With
and it's just there's things that you can do with him that maybe you couldn't quite do with Perillo. You could play him and Perillo together in a single back and remove Richard Rodgers from the equation completely, and then you have 2+ run blockers out there because I've seen mm-hmm. Perillo do some decent stuff in the run blocking game. Yeah. But just different ways that you can use Corliss that you can't really do with Justin Perillo, and there's nothing wrong with him. He had a big game against the Lions at home. Really thought that he was going to take a step up, and then at the same time, you really thought that Richard Rodgers was maybe going to parlay that success and that comeback victory over the Lions into some long-term success, and you just haven't seen that. So at this point, I think we're going to have to do tight end by committee, mm-hmm. and adding a player with Corliss's abilities to that committee is nothing but good. And right. So, I think you have a 10-4 team. You have an offense that isn't quite clicking. You got to be pretty happy about that. To think about the fact that tomorrow this offense could click, mm-hmm. and you were 10-4 playing like crap all year. Winning 10 games is hard to do in this league. Mm-hmm. There's no question about it. So it's promising, and it'll be interesting to see what Corliss can do. Ryan, let's talk a little defense. Sam Shields went out with that concussion against Oakland, and they decided to go on the outside with Demarius Randall and Quentin Rollins. They kept Casey Hayward in the nickel. use Mike Hyde in the dime, but they didn't shy away from that all day long. And those were your corners, Quentin Rollins and Demarius Randall, all game long. How impressed are you with Ted Thompson's first 2 picks this year?
Oh, very impressed. And the group of people I was watching said a number of times that these guys are really good for being rookie cornerbacks, neither of which had a lot of experience playing cornerback. These weren't guys you were expecting to come in and be your starting outside cornerbacks in a game down the stretch. That absolutely was not what you're thinking when you see Thompson draft 2 corners in the first 2 rounds at draft time. But they have been very impressive. Obviously, Amari Cooper went out and had a really good game, but Amari Cooper's really, really good. And
I don't understand what the hell they were doing leaving him by himself.
Yeah,
Oakland has one mismatch. Why is he?
Why do you let him do it by himself? Yeah, but regardless, he had a big game, but they also made some plays against Amari Cooper. They were, he didn't completely expose the guys he was going with. They were able to make some really nice plays covering Michael Crabtree, who's been a solid receiver this season. They did better than I ever would have expected as the outside cornerbacks, like you said.
And either David Carr is obsessed with Amari Cooper, which if I was David Carr, Derek Carr, right?
David, not in the league.
Right, okay, excuse me. It's a good thing I don't cover the Raiders, because I would do that so often. Derek Carr, if I was Derek Carr, I'd be obsessed with Amari Cooper, too. I thought he was the best player in this draft class coming in. But either he's obsessed with Amari Cooper or Quentin Rollins did a hell of a job on Michael Crabtree, because I don't remember Rollins being targeted that often. He must have.
He made a really nice play in the end zone on a Michael Crabtree target. He went up and knocked the ball away.
He dropped an interception, too.
Yeah, but like I said, they targeted Crabtree in the end zone. Rollins made a really nice play on the ball. He played really well. And you don't expect Demarius Randall to be able to completely shut down Amari Cooper, who is really, really good. But the fact that he was able to even do as good a job as he did, and then Rollins was able to shut down Crabtree on the other side, you never would have expected 2 rookie cornerbacks to be able to do that against a pretty solid wide receiver combo in Oakland. So I'm incredibly impressed with those 2.
Just give a brother some safety help. Like, that's all we're asking. Right. Let's talk a little bit more defense. Julius Peppers had 2.5 sacks against the Oakland Raiders. That brings his total to 9.5. Is there any chance that he's on the team next year? Keep in mind, his cap number goes from 12 to 10.5, goes down $1.5 million next year, but he's going to be a year older. And our next topic is the fact that they gave almost exactly that money to somebody else for next season. Granted, the cap's going to continue to rise as more and more money comes into the league. $10.5 million for a pass rusher is a pretty reasonable deal. Do you think there's any chance that Julius Peppers is on the team next year?
I think there's a chance. I think at this point you expect him to be cut, but it wouldn't surprise me that much to see Peppers back. It did surprise me to see his sack numbers. Not knowing them off the top of my head, and then seeing it flash on the screen during the game, I would not have guessed that he had that number of sacks this season. It kind of seems like he had sort of disappeared at several times this season. But yeah, I think there's a chance he comes back. I wouldn't predict it right now, but like I said, it wouldn't shock me if he comes back. I think he can still be capable. He's probably a part-time pass rusher.
That's my thing. I wish he'd play 30 snaps.
Yeah, he's a guy who shouldn't be out there full time. Put him out there situationally, and for a guy who's probably best as a situational pass rusher, $10 million is probably a little bit excessive. So, wouldn't surprise me if he's back, but I don't think at this point that's going to be the case.
I think he's cut. I mean, I think that they could certainly maybe bring him back after releasing him and just have that conversation with him. Say, hey, if you want to play 25 snaps a game and you'll come in here for $6 million, let's talk. Like that's a real thing. We can use you on third down and on second and long, and we'll rotate you in. That's fine. But you're going to play 25 snaps. You're going to play 30 snaps. You're going to have one job, and sometimes we're going to drop you into coverage. Sometimes we're going to rush the passer, but you are not a run defender anymore.
Right.
Which he'd probably be okay with, I would think.
Right. I can't imagine he enjoys ramming his head into tackles and tight ends trying to play the run. He's been a pass rusher his whole life. He needs to be a situational pass rusher, and I just don't think $10 million makes sense for what he is right now.
Well, as we talked a little bit about in the intro, that $10.5 million is going to your guy, Mikey Daniels. Obviously, this is old news. People listening to this podcast, especially if you subscribe, and we appreciate that, to the Packers Talk Network, you have heard plenty of podcasts, plenty of regular radio shows, SportsCenter, et cetera, talk about this. But he's kind of your guy. So I'm going to let you talk about the Mikey Daniels extension, and then we'll kind of move on. But that's a big deal for this team, and obviously one of your favorite players.
Yeah, I love that Mike Daniels is back for at least another 4 years with the Packers. He is a really, really, really good defensive lineman. He is really fun to watch. Just maul guards. Really, no matter what, he makes good guards look not good. He's so important. He's been the best player on defense for the Packers this season. With the defense playing so well, that is saying something. He has been a better defensive lineman than Clay Matthews has been a linebacker. He's been a better defensive lineman than Morgan Burnett or Clinton Dix have been safeties. He's been a better defensive lineman than Casey Hayward has been a slot corner. He is the best player on the defense. He's playing like it. He is putting together his best season. We've seen flashes of this a lot over the last few years. We knew this was possible, and he's putting it together. He's having a great season, and nothing from his play suggests that it's going to drop off, that this is that this is just a flash in the pan. He's a really good defensive player. He's one of the better defensive linemen in the league, and there are some very, very good defensive linemen in the league right now, but he is right up there with all of those guys. It is very important to have him back on the defensive line, locked up. I would have been just so sad to see him doing what he does for any other team. I was really pumped to see that news flash across my phone when I woke up that morning. This had to happen. I've been saying pay the man for quite some time, and I'm glad it finally happened.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was a signing that needed to happen. He's going to be part of the future, no matter what kind of defensive scheme we're running going forward. Capers is very old. A lot of guys aren't really pro Capers anyway. I'm not convinced that Don Capers is the defensive coordinator throughout all of Mikey's
Those
contract.
4 years, yeah.
But it doesn't really matter because, as we said, he was a 4-3 guy in college. Certainly fits in a one gap or even things like that. So
he's not a guy who can only succeed in this
at the
one.
5 tech. Exactly.
He can play several different line spots and be successful. It's he's a guy you just have to lock up.
So who's next? I mean, who needs an extension next? Anybody in that next class? I mean, do you care?
I mean, we had talked about preseason that the two guys were Daniels and Hayward. With the success that Randall and Rollins have had as rookies, it makes that a little less urgent. Sam Shields, despite a couple of little injury problems this season, is having his best season. It certainly makes Casey Hayward a little bit more expendable. We tried the outside corner thing with him. It wasn't the best idea, so he's going to really only command some slot corner money. He's probably not going to break the bank. So I think it bring Casey Hayward back unless someone wants to give him a ton of money, which I don't think will happen necessarily. I think you bring Casey Hayward back, but that's really it. We'll see how the cards fall in the offseason, but I would like to see Casey Hayward back. Right off the top of my head of guys who need extensions.
See, I don't care. I mean, I think, as far as I'm concerned, you offer Casey Hayward a certain amount of money, which is what Ted does anyway, and if he says no, you feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
And then the reason for that is you still have Hyde, you still have Rollins, you still have Shields. You can draft a guy, and then you pair him with Meach and Gunter. And Gunter is a legitimate outside nickel. So if you feel like you slide in Rollins, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the bottom line
you have options.
You have options because Rollins has showed the fact that, Quentin can play wherever, and you have Randall, who hasn't really had any experience as a slot guy. But that might not matter just because you have Hyde. You have Hyde, you have Rollins, you got your two slot guys there. Gunter's an outside guy. You have Shields, who's an outside-only guy. You have people that you can sort of move around. And then if you want to take another cornerback safety hybrid guy in the fourth round, like you did with Hyde, no problem.
You certainly have more options now than we thought we would preseason when we were thinking Casey Hayward was going to be right up there with Mike Daniels as guys who need to get extensions. That's that situation has changed a little bit.
So I got to ask you, do you care if Green Bay wins the division?
It certainly doesn't. The playoff picture doesn't look like it would really improve the situation all that much if you go in as the 5 seed. You get the NFC East champion, which does not scare you. That's a pretty poor division. Whether it's the Redskins, the Giants, Eagles, who I don't even know who's able to win that division. That certainly doesn't scare you. The playoff picture, it doesn't look like winning the division by itself is going to be that much of a boon to the chances of a playoff run. What would be nice is if we were able to beat Arizona, then beat Minnesota, win the division, and get the 2 seed if Seattle can beat Arizona in Week 17. Obviously, that's a little more than just winning the division. But winning the division by itself, I don't think, is all that important. It would be nice to be able to stick in Vikings fans' faces yet again. There would probably be quite a bit of Viking crowing if they were able to add an NFC North trophy to their trophy case. But no, I don't think for the playoff picture it is all that important that the Packers win the division.
And that's kind of the point, right? Is that the NFC North Championship is that ultimate sign of dominance over the division, which is fine when you're dealing with, your buddies that cheer for whoever. But in the bottom line, they've won 4 straight, no title. Last time they didn't win it, they won the title. I mean, that's all that matters in Green Bay is Super Bowl championships. So I don't care, especially when, like you said, that if they do get that 5th seed, they have an easier pass into the divisional round. Now, this team is going to play to win. Both games, probably. So, common sense would tell you that they're going to maybe lose to Arizona and then beat the Vikings just because it's Mike Zimmer on the road, Teddy Bridgewater on the road. These are guys that have not ever won a big game. So it would be odd to take them in a big game over Rodgers and McCarthy, certainly.
In Lambeau Field.
Right, exactly. But this is just, I just don't care. I mean, this is a team that is currently 5-2 on the road. They're a better road team this year than they have been in a long time. That's the way that they won the last Super Bowl, was all on the road.
Yep.
I just don't care. It doesn't matter in the long term. All that matters is taking home that Lombardi trophy. Now, Green Bay's Super Bowl odds aren't great, but I don't think it would matter if they were the 3. I don't think their odds wouldn't be any better if they were the number 3 seed. Now, just as far as getting that number 2, that's the thing. Because then that's just one less chance you have of losing. That turns it into,
you have to win 2 games.
And then you're in.
Yeah.
And then winning a Super Bowl is a 3-game proposition. And
then if somebody knocks out Carolina, then you have the NFC Championship potentially at Lambeau Field. A lot of good things can happen if they get the 2 seed. But like I said, just winning the division by itself, if Arizona is able to lock up the number 2 seed, not that.
And that's the other thing too about winning the 3 seed. You win the 3 seed, you go in Arizona and win. Somebody knocks off Carolina, game still at Lambeau Field. That's the only thing about winning the division is if they are the 5, the only team that they could play is the 6, and that could be
the
Seattle, which would be at home. It depends on kind of where everybody goes there, but
a lot of different things can play out.
At the end of this weekend, you're looking at potentially an 11-4 Packers team with a head-to-head tiebreaker over Minnesota, Arizona, and Seattle, and having lost to Carolina on the last play. I mean, that's actually where this team is at, as opposed to the worst Packers team in recent history, which is, I think, what you would get if
the vibe you get.
Yeah, exactly. As we've kind of mentioned, or as sort of is the deal, Green Bay is 4.5-point underdogs. They don't spend a whole lot of time in the regular season as underdogs. Obviously, they lose games. Like, they've lost 4 times, but they are usually the favorite going into each game, just the way that not only the public bets the Packers, but how good the McCarthy, Rodgers, whatever system has been. Why can they win this game, Ryan?
Well, like we've talked about, they have the ability. They're very close to being a legitimate Super Bowl contender right now. And Arizona just lost their best defensive player, probably their second best player overall behind Carson Palmer. Tyrann Mathieu is out for the season. He will not play in this game. Pro Football Focus had him rated as the number 1 cornerback in the NFL this season. Great in coverage, better than Patrick Peterson in coverage. Great in the run game, blitzes a lot. That's a huge, huge loss for them, and something that I think Bruce Arians and his staff would be able to overcome in the long term. I don't know if they go in their first game without Mathieu and are really able to play really well defensively. I think they probably get stuff figured out by the time the playoffs come around, but I think you have an opportunity where they're kind of feeling out their situation. Now, outside of Patrick Peterson at cornerback, you have two guys. Green Bay plays a lot of 3-wide. They're going to be in the nickel a lot. You've got 2 guys outside of Patrick Peterson who are nowhere near as good as Tyrann Mathieu is. That exposes their defense. Mathieu allows them to do a lot of different things as far as blitzing, coverage. He does everything. He's been one of the better defensive players in the league this season, and now he's gone. That's something that's going to be difficult for that defense to overcome. That gives the Packers a chance. It gives them some matchup, some positive matchups that weren't there before. If they were coming into this game with Mathieu and Peterson, you're not expecting a whole lot out of Devontae Adams, out of Randall Cobb, out of James Jones on the outside when 2 of them are covered by 2 of the better corners in the league. Now they really are only able to lock up 1 guy with Patrick Peterson, and then there's some potential matchup possibilities for the Packers in other spots in the field. So that's a big reason why the Packers can win this game. Obviously, if the offense can flip that switch like we were talking, this now becomes a defense that it's possible that the Packers can expose them a little bit. I think I don't know if that's necessarily likely right now, but it gives you a little bit of hope. Whereas if they had Mathieu and Peterson and that defense was playing to their full potential, I think I would predict the Cardinals to kind of shut down the Packers. But without Mathieu, it throws a big wrench in that. It'll be interesting to see what the Packers are able to do offensively, how the Cardinals defensive staff reacts, how they move things around. It'll be interesting to watch. But that is why the Packers can win. They have the ability. They've been one of the better teams in the NFC, even with how poorly the fans think they've been playing. They can absolutely win this game. They could lose by 17 points also, but they can win this game.
I think you nailed it too. I think it is the Mathieu thing, just because that totally changes how they match up with Green Bay. I think a big part of it too is if Shields can play, because one of the things that these guys do so well is they use J.J. Nelson and John Brown, who are just really, really fast. Mm-hmm. And what Quentin Rollins does, and what Demarius Randall does, are not running a straight line real fast. Mm-hmm. They're good players, but the only guy in the Packers secondary who runs in a straight line real fast is Sam Shields.
Right.
So having him to kind of take away that John Brown stuff Well, I will enjoy watching Demarius Randall get in a boxing match with Larry Fitzgerald.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Quentin Rollins matching up with Michael Floyd. That's fine. You get Micah Hyde, in some of that. The Cardinals aren't really that good at the tight end position. But if you're not with Sam Shields, then you have issues because you need to give. I mean, you probably need to anyway, but you have to give safety help on John Brown because he'll run
right past Quentin Rollins
or Casey Hayward, or you're gonna have some issues. Mm-hmm. So that's a big deal. But the Matthew thing, you nailed it. You hit it right on the head. They blitz so much because they have no pass rushers that really becomes a problem. And you saw Denver blitz the hell out of the Packers and succeed. And historically, teams have really gotten in trouble blitzing Aaron Rodgers. Now, you would hope that maybe a little bit of Aberderis, Cobb, these guys starting to get a little bit more comfortable. But beating that, because when you blitz, a lot of times you come down and you're basically saying, if you're going to beat us, it's going to be for a touchdown because we're going to jam your receivers and blitz you, and we're betting that you don't have the time to get it out. Now, Matthew was not only a part of that blitz, but a part of that not having the time. He'll take away your first read while that blitz is coming. Without him, they could be in trouble. And if they're blitzing Aaron Rodgers all day, the blitz pickup's going to be part of it. The pass pro, David Bakhtiari is a big deal in this game as well. But without Matthew covering up that back end or being such an effective blitzer, they're either bringing a blitzer who's not as good as him, or they're covering with someone who's not as good as him. And historically, it hasn't been this season, but there's a lot more to go off of than just this season. Historically, Rodgers will run you if you blitz him. So we'll have to see how that goes. I think they have a chance to win. Certainly, that's not saying that it's likely. And let's dive right into the prediction for this week's game. Ryan, I've got 23-27 Cardinals.
I'm very similar. I was gonna go 30-24 Cardinals. I can't pick the Packers to go into Arizona and win this game. Carson Palmer and those receivers are playing really well. I like we said, the loss of Matthew gives the Packers offense a better chance to keep up and maybe get in a shootout with the Cardinals offense. But I just don't have the confidence at this point that they'll be able to go in on the road and against a really good team and win. The two big road games they've had against the better teams they've played, the Broncos and Panthers, they lost both of those games, and I think that's probably going to be the case again. I think they keep it a little closer than Denver, but I just can't predict. I can't predict a Packer victory this week.
So do they win the division?
I think they do. I think they lose. I think they lose the Cardinals game, and I think they go into Lambeau. They beat the Vikings in Week 17. Seems like whoever the schedule makers make the Week 17 Packers matchup against, that's the team that's going to be fighting for second in the division. Seems like that Week 17 matchup has been for the division. Seems like that happens every year. So I feel like they're going to take the Vikings in Week 17, lose to the Cardinals, go in as the 3 seed, and see what happens in the playoffs. And
we thought too that it wasn't going to mean anything, and it wouldn't have. I mean, that Mason Crosby field goal goes in against the Lions. This game doesn't mean anything. Green Bay scores against. I mean, it's those two games. Those are the two that you look at because I think there's a pretty stark difference in talent and just overall quality of the team between Green Bay and Minnesota. But anything can happen. Yeah, they certainly could lose the division. I just don't think they will. I'm going to go with you. I'm going to say ultimately Green Bay ends up as the 3 seed, and then you end up with that divisional matchup in Arizona. It's a rematch. They have to deal with the Cardinals again. If they get past that game, you got a chance of going back to Carolina. You got a chance of hosting at Lambeau Field. Depends on how
what happens on the other side.
Yep, yeah. It depends on how Seahawks Panthers goes. Wouldn't it be something, like you said in the pre-production meeting? Wouldn't it be something if after all of this, the NFC Championship ends up being Packers Seahawks at Lambeau this time, just like we all thought it was going to be
in Week 8?
Before the season. Yeah. So anyway, we'd like to thank you guys as always for listening. Your time is always appreciated. We'd like you to subscribe if you can to the Packers Talk Network. Leave us a a review. We prefer the ones with 5 stars. Feel free to leave a comment. That kind of stuff helps us come up higher in the iTunes charts. People search for the Packers, search for Aaron Rodgers, search for whatever. It helps the Packers Talk Network show up a little bit higher and helps us provide the content that we provide to you. You can follow the show at From the Benches. You can follow me. I'm at Ross Uglum. You can follow Ryan
at Hillsland 358.
Thanks again for listening, and go Pack Go.